Hello guys, it's Chumother here doing another Bakugan video. This time, basically just going to give my final impressions on Bakugan Gen 3. I will talk about why these are my final impressions later, and address what might happen if, Bakugan continues, but anyway. Yeah, for now, this video, basically, it's just going to be me talking. I'm not really interacting with the camera at all, so you could throw us like a background tab or something, but anyway. About a month ago, there were some reports that Gen 3 might actually be done with already, not even a year in. So, apparently a credible factory worker has said that production's been done for months. Like, they haven't been producing more Bakugan. Also, anything for Season 2 was, like, thrown out. Apparently the show, Season 2 of the show was not greenlit. There's a video done by Haru Ren who reported on this initially. I will leave a link to the video in the description if you haven't seen it yet. He goes over everything in better detail. I'm just here to give my thoughts on everything that happened and what I think should be done moving forward. So, yeah, with that said, go check that out if you want more context. But yeah, let's just get into kind of my thoughts on all of this. So first up, I don't like Gen 3 at all. I really, really don't. Part of me is very happy that this is done, because Gen 3, we'll talk about it in a bit, it wasn't good. It was not good. It wasn't good at all. Again, we'll get into that, but this is also not good because, well, when Gen 2 ended, they had a plan for a third Gen to take its place, very shortly after. Great. But if Gen 3 is canon, there's no way they were trying to make this a one-season thing. There's no way. This is probably meant to be the new thing for, at least 4 or so years, and if it's done, they probably have nothing. So it'll be probably a minimum a couple of years until we get anything else, unless if they try to rush out of Gen 4, which, we'll talk about that later. But, it could be a couple of years, could be a few years till we see anything. Could be, Gen 1 to 2's gap, which, Gen 1 ended in 2012. We didn't get Gen 2 until 2019, so there's that. Or maybe Bakugan is just done entirely. They might just view Bakugan as not being profitable because, sales and stuff kind of fell off towards, late Gen 2, and, Gen 3 flopped. They might just think, Bakugan, is done. So, this isn't really a good thing to see Gen 3 flop to the extent that it did, where they had to cancel anything after. So, we'll see. And yeah, maybe somehow it's not canceled and there was a false report, but I kind of doubt that. But yeah, we're going based on, the fact that, well, assuming that it's canceled. So, that's not a good thing. There's nothing to line up, I'd assume. Very unlikely that they've had any sort of backup plan, because again, I don't imagine they anticipated this happening, so we might be without Bakugan for a while, or just forever. That's not great. Now, that said, why did this gen flop as bad as it did? So this gen did not have any real direction. I would ask what were they thinking, but they weren't thinking. It just seemed like Gen 2, they were losing steam. Yeah, okay. We lost the TCG. They were clearly, for the first 4 seasons, they're just following the roadmap of Gen 1, which was probably, helped. I'm assuming that that roadmap was, partially done by, Sega Toys back then, so they're just following what Sega Toys probably laid out. Traps, different shapes and stuff. They made Jugon. Jugon are different functionally, but still, a similar idea. Baku gear, they're just battle gear in a new gen. And then, of course, Mectanium Surge, evolutions, both season 4s, we got Metal, and we had Baku Nano back then. Now we have Nanogon. Great. It's they clearly were just calculating what they had. So, season 5, that's uncharted territory. We could do Baku Tech, but that might take effort. That might cost a little bit extra money, and we have to use our brains. So let's not do that. Let's just put a board up, throw a dart at it, see what it hits. Baku bolts from Gundalian Invaders, those random super assaults that lit up. Okay, that's going to be our whole gimmick for the end of Gen 5, or end of Gen 2 for Season 5. Sorry about that. And everything else is just going to be reprints, Nova Bakugan were horrible. They lit up. Who cares? They didn't do anything. The lights were just there for show, and they costed $3 extra. Great. So after that, they're probably like, okay, well, we need a Gen 3. We have to replace this. We want this to be like an evergreen brand. Let's replace it. Let's start new. We don't have any more ideas. We gotta do something new. And they banked on spinning Bakugan, these new special attack Bakugan that spun. They had the whole weird, plastic pieces on the outside. You don't roll them anymore. You spin them in these horrible stadiums that are overpriced. Great. Obviously, it flopped because they just had, they're not Bakugan anymore. Like, what is this? Spinning Bakugan. Like, okay, you need a whole stadium for it to even work properly. And the stadiums are expensive. Great. I think they made, like, a smaller stadium eventually, but it was, like, a later. Like, people already made their impressions. It was too late, It was like damage control. So you made a smaller, cheaper stadium, great, okay. Well, functionally, Bakugan are still not what they were. Again, it's more setup, just more annoying to do, and the spinning doesn't even work well. Like, it's not interesting. It doesn't make for interesting battles. It's a lot of just random chance. There's nothing here that is actually good. So, it failed because there wasn't any thought put into the design of these things, how they were supposed to work. It almost seems like there was maybe some thought put in initially, but they just wanted to rush it out because, we're out of ideas for Gen 2 and it's starting to fall off. We need a quick reboot. Let's just take what we have and throw it out. That's what it felt like anyway, so yeah. As far as gimmicks go as well, I think I don't know if this was a late Gen 1 or a late Season 1 thing or if this was meant to be a Season 2 thing. I didn't really bother to check when I first saw it at the time because, again, I didn't care about Gen 3 at all. But, there's this whole thing where there's supposed to be like different shapes and stuff, like the top of the Bakugan, like the top half on the special type Bakugan, we're gonna have like different shapes, but who cares? Like, you can't do a whole lot with shapes for half of a Bakugan. Maybe have it like triangular, kind of. Oh boy, how exciting! Like, what kind of gimmick is that? Like who cares? That doesn't do anything at all. Like, again, it's so limiting with being a small part of the Bakugan. Okay, the shapes can't be that crazy, and the Bakugan spin. There's just not like, okay, who cares? Like, that's such a stupid gimmick. I'm sorry to say. Like having the top half be a different shape because they spin now. We don't have to worry about rolling them, so ergonomics don't matter. But can you also just take the special attack like disc thing off and roll them if you really want to? I guess there's like the bottom part that obstructs that kind of, but still, like, maybe do something with them. Now you really can't at all. Like, at least maybe the top half you could do something with, but the bottom half, you couldn't. But now both halves are just a mess. Like, what are they? I don't know what they're trying to do here. Like okay, slightly different shapes for the top part. Great. Who cares? This impacts nothing. I don't think it's hard to see why this gen failed with just poor planning. They didn't know what they were doing. And yeah, again, the target market as well. This is another big problem. So when you look at the target market of Gen 3, it's questionable. Like, it's really bland and boring, and kids aren't going to care about this. Adults aren't going to care about this. It just didn't seem like they knew what they wanted to do. I just don't think they cared. I think they just knew Bakugan is a big brand name, and they'll throw out whatever. People will buy it, it's fine. And it didn't work. You need more effort than that. Can't just throw out garbage. And the sad thing is, there's a good chance that they're probably going to try and blame, iPads and smartphones and whatever else nowadays, kids aren't going to buy toys. No, kids will buy toys, maybe less than they were, but they'll still buy them. But when you're putting out garbage, why bother, You have other things to do. And this just didn't appeal to anyone. Bakugan fans who like Bakugan did not care about this. And the gen itself is kind of expensive because, you need, like some kind of stadium. And it's harder to get into. And functionally, it's not fun. So, who is it for? No one. Spin Masters throw out garbage because they thought they can get away with it, and great, they didn't. So, yeah. My theory here is that, Beyblade, Beyblade Burst was ending in 2023. Quad Strike, in the US and other international countries outside of Japan, Beyblade's ending. And I actually had a second point here where I was going to talk about, how Beyblade Burst, wasn't actually that good, internationally because Hasbro mishandled it horribly. I was gonna have a whole point about that, but then I realized, wait a minute, Spin Master's not gonna realize that at all. They clearly don't know what they're doing with toys, so I dropped that point because they aren't gonna understand why Hasbro messed up. So the main point here is that Beyblade Burst was finishing up in 2023. Perfect time for a new spinning toy to come into play, and yeah, functionally, Gen 3 is much different than Beyblade. The comparison obviously makes sense, but yeah, they don't play the same. I mean, Beyblade is just a better game in general, but yeah. The whole spinning thing, I guess they maybe were trying to hope that there was a new spinning toy, and so they could maybe bring in, some of the Beyblade fans after Gen 3 or after Burst finished, and then also Bakugan fans and try to get more people in. Maybe that was their idea, but the funny thing is, Beyblade decided to also go evergreen, and we got Beyblade X announced very quickly after Burst finished, and the international launch is happening within the next month or two. And the funny thing is, Beyblade X starters are $10 and boosters are $7, and Special Attack Bakugan are $10. So you're trying to compete with Beyblade at that point. You're losing horribly because again, boosters are cheaper, starters are the same price. Stadiums, well, the big set is expensive. It's like $50. There's the cheaper stadiums you could buy, and they're launching with those. So the barrier of entry issue isn't as bad. And also, it's just a much more dynamic game. So there's that. And I think maybe they're trying to anticipate, Beyblade being on a few year hiatus, they maybe, get away with something here. And they didn't. Because again, Beyblade X just happened quickly, so what do you do with that? I don't know. That's just my theory anyway. I think maybe they're trying to corner the Beyblade market and just failed miserably because they didn't think that happened, which is really funny to think about, but yeah. So, they completely failed on capturing a market, and if that was their whole plan, was to try and bring in Beyblade fans, well, Bakugan Gen 3 is just so much worse than anything Beyblade. I'd even take Hasbro Burst over this. It's at least Beyblade, You have a stadium, you could change the parts around. It's bad, but it was something, Hasbro Burst, okay. It's better than Gen 3, whatever it was trying to do. So you're not really capturing Beyblade fans very well, I feel like. And also, Bakugan fans don't like this. I genuinely do not know any Bakugan fans that thought that this was a good gen. Some people thought it was maybe whatever, and just thought it was okay, and had problems with it, but no one I know actually liked this. They, again, had zero idea of what they were trying to do here at all. Absolutely none. Completely out of touch. So, some of these things are kind of reiterated from my Gen 3 first impressions video. So, let's get into something different. So, what needs to happen now? So, if Gen 3 really is done, what do they need to do here? Well, they could just quit, or, force out a Gen 4 within the next year or so to try and make up for Gen 3. Both of these are bad options. Quitting entirely, well, that sucks because Bakugan's just dead at that point. But I know some people might want Gen 4 back, or Bakugan back, so they might want a Gen 4 soon, but don't force a Gen 4 because we saw how forcing a Gen goes. Gen 3 went horribly. So there's two things that you could do here. First up, maybe take a couple years. Maybe try to have a launch for 2026, alright? In that case, try to take a step back, trying to think about Gen 3. What, why did Gen 3 flop so badly? Some other reasons, maybe that I didn't list already. Think about Gen 2. What worked with Gen 2? Why did that click? And what did you fail on? Obviously, the TCG was an interesting idea that, they just canned, and that did not go over well. But try and think about something, think about Bakutech, think about Gen 1. And with the TCG, you don't, if that was going to be too ambitious, you don't really need something like that. Bakugan itself can just be its own game. I think Bakutech proved that. It had a physical aspect to the game, and it was genuinely a unique game to Bakugan, which we never saw because Gen 1's rule sets outside of Bakutech was very bland, and the TCG just made Bakugan into a skill mechanic, and Gen 3, I don't even know where to place that one, but yeah, Bakutech was its own legitimate game. So you can do that. You can put some effort in, take a year or so to plan it out, figure it out, and I'm sure you can make a solid gen that people would enjoy. Here's the downside, you have to think. And putting effort into this gen, I mean a new gen, I don't know if Spin Master is willing to do that. I can see Spin Master just wanting to be lazy and force something out. Don't do that, it's going to flop again. Just save everyone else's money and time and your own, and, don't force it out. Actually put some brain power into this. Hell, I have an email. Email me. I will give you pointers on what Bakugan did right, and I will help you form a Gen 4. Or any of the Baku Masters that you had in contact with for Gen 2. I don't know if they actually carried over Gen 3 or not, but anyway. There's plenty of people in this community that know what they're talking about and could actually help, to guide and direct a Gen 4. Like, a lot of people. Get community help. Like, would that happen? Probably not, but it's better than whatever Spin Master tried to do with Gen 3. Anyone would have told you that was a horrid idea and should have never been done. So, something has to give. Either, if you guys can't think of anything, again, contact someone and get some help. Or, actually just try. It can happen. I know I've said before that I don't think Spin Master is ever good, but I imagine they could still put out some good stuff. Maybe not to the point of, like, the peak of Gen 1 or Bakutech, but it could probably still exceed late Gen 1, Mighty Name Surge, Gens 2 and 3, and actually be good. Hell, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they can exceed, all of Gen 1. Maybe they could even exceed Bakutech. Prove me wrong. That'd be great. But regardless, again, something has to change here for sure. Now, the other thing they could do. Sell the IP. If you're not going to do anything with the IP, if you're just going to keep continuing to waste your own time and everyone else's time and money, or just can it entirely because you don't know what to do about it and you just want to blame anyone but yourselves, even though you're the ones at fault for making a genuinely terrible generation, sell the IP. Give it to someone, and I'm sure you can make quite a bit. You think Bakugan's a big brand? Yeah, I'm sure you could sell off for a lot. Someone will buy it, and maybe that person or company or whatever can actually do something with it. That's good, because you people haven't for a long time now. Gen 2 seemed like a step in the right direction, but you didn't want to commit to anything. You didn't want to commit to the TCG. You didn't want to commit to good distribution. You just wanted to do everything and cut corners, and it was horrible. Like, Gen 2 was decent, but I think it could have been actually really good and comparable to Gen 1. But instead, no, you cut corners, and you messed up everything. And then Gen 3, you didn't try at all, and you didn't know what you were doing, and you tried to force something out, try to, capture what seemed like, Beyblade's market with a possible generation gap, and that didn't happen, and it flopped because no one wanted it. So, reevaluate your decisions here, and just try something, actually put in some effort here for once. I know it's a scary thought, but, just try it. Or sell the IP. If you just want the money, you're going to be better off selling the IP at that point, because you're not going to throw out garbage and happen to strike gold. It's not going to happen at this point. For sure. So with all that said, I made this video as if it was, the end. I called it Final Impressions. So what if Gen 3 were to continue? Would I go back, make another video, and talk about Gen 3 being back, there's a Season 2 happening or whatever? No, there's no point. I don't care if Gen 3 gets 5 seasons, I'm done talking about it. Because in 4 years from now, when Season 5 ends and Gen 3 flops, as it already has been, it's just going to be me reiterating the exact same points. Plus maybe a few horrible gimmicks to go along with it. There's no point. Why keep talking about this? It's garbage. We all know it's garbage. There's no point in me continuing to talk about this gen at all. Even making the second video, I feel like, is reiterating a lot of what I said in my first impressions video. But since it does seem like it's done, I figured I might as well. But yeah. If there's more stuff to come for Gen 3, I'm not interested. The only way I'm going to actually be interested is if they completely overhaul it entirely. To the point of it really not even being Gen 3 anymore, and it's just like a Gen 3.5, nothing's the same. Then maybe it'll come back. Or if they just completely reboot again and we get Gen 4. Then I will, but that's probably not going to happen here if they were to continue. So I'm not talking about Gen 3 more. And even then, I think it's done. I don't think they're going to come back from this, within this gen at least, so it's probably done, but if it's not, I don't care. These are my final impressions, regardless of whether or not it ends here or keeps going, because it's just not worth my time. And I think most people also don't think it's worth their time, because if you look at Bakugan, like the trends of Bakugan, or even just YouTube videos and people who make videos and stuff on it, a lot of people seem to be dropping off of Gen 3 entirely. People who do make Bakugan videos are just sticking to other stuff that isn't related to Gen 3 a lot of the time, it seems. No one cares about Gen 3, so if it continues, I'm not going to talk about it. I'll just stick to whatever else I want to talk about Bakugan related that is probably not Gen 3. And if it is Gen 3, it's probably in a video about something else. That's better. So there you go. Those are my final impressions on Gen 3. It was absolutely abysmal, and they had no idea what they were doing with this whole gen, as I've said multiple times at this point. So yeah, do better next time. Do better, or just sell the IP. One of the two. Either one works. Whatever actually gets people decent Bakugan is the way to go, but just do not be forcing out a Gen 4 to try and force out a Gen 4, because it's not going to go well. So, there you go. That's it. That's all for Gen 3 from me. Again, any mentions of Gen 3 in the future will be either in a video unrelated to Gen 3 and just kind of general Bakugan stuff. It'll just be that, not, fully focused on Gen 3. Or if they somehow revamp the entire gen, and it's basically not even Gen 3 anymore. That's the only other way I'm talking about it, so yeah. That's all though, so thanks for watching, and bye-bye.